Nathan. My name is Nicole. I'll be your student physical therapist assistant today. What I have in mind is for us to do some strengthening exercises. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to start with that TheraBand right there. So with your palm facing up, just go ahead and take all the slack out of it and then wrap it around your hand a little bit, but make sure you're not stretching the band yet. Make sure you keep your elbow flexed at 90 degrees and right by your side, just like that. And what I want you to do is kind of pull your hand in towards your side, just at the wrist right here. Good. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Okay. So this time we're going to put this band in the other hand just to show the camera. And wrap it around like we did before, taking the slack out with your elbow at 90 degrees, just like this. Okay, and this time, instead of doing it on your pinky side, we're going to do it on your thumb side. Make sure you're flat. And just kind of pull away and make sure only your wrist is moving. Okay? Good. Okay, so now we're doing pretty much the same thing, but we're going to do wrist extension. So go ahead and wrap it around your hand like we did before, taking all the slack out. And keeping your elbow as close to your body as possible and at 90. And we're only moving our wrist, so just push it down towards the floor. Okay, and come back up. Alright, and we're going to do all of these exercises 8 to 12 times, just like the last two. We're going to do 8 to 12 this time. Okay, this time we're going to wrap it around, just like we've been doing all the other times, taking the slack out. Okay, keep your elbow by your body and make sure your elbow is flexed. Make sure your wrist is level and just pull up. Just make sure you're not flexing your elbow anymore. Okay, we're going to do that 8 to 12 times as well. So now we're going to do pronation and supination with the resistance band. So just like we did before, we're going to have our elbow flexed at 90 degrees and up against our body. And when you wrap your TheraBand around your hand, make sure that you take the slack out, but you don't actually stretch it. So go ahead and do that. Okay, and for this one, we're going to start in neutral. So you might have to back off just a little bit, and there you go. And now we're going to do pronation, so we're going to do palm to the floor. Okay, just make sure you keep your elbow where it needs to be. And now we're going to swap hands to show supination. And just make sure you keep the slack pulled and start in neutral. So this time, as long as our elbow is still by our side and flexed, we're going to put our palm up towards the ceiling. And we're going to do both of these 8 to 12 times. Okay, now we're going to do elbow extension. So we are going to wrap that band around your hand like we did before. And we're just taking the slack out. We're not trying to pull it or anything. Okay, try to keep your elbow by your side and go straight down. And come back up slow. Okay. And we can do this in pronation, supination, or neutral, and it's still 8 to 12 reps. Now my patient is going to do elbow flexion with the resistance band. So he is standing on the band already. And what you're going to do is wrap that around your hand and make sure you're not pulling the band tight, but make sure there's also no slack. We're going to start all the way down here at the bottom. And this can be done in neutral, supination, or pronation, so whichever you're working on. And you're going to go all the way up towards your shoulder. And make sure your elbow stays by your side, and make sure you're not lifting your shoulder up. You go back down slow. We're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Okay, now we're going to do scapular retraction with the resistance band. So you're kind of going to do the same thing that you did before, but now you're pulling back on the band instead of pushing it forward. So you can go ahead and stand in front of it right here. Okay, and you beside you. So wrap it around your hand like you did before. And make sure that you just have the slack out, that you're not pulling it. And you're going to act like you're trying to touch my finger with your shoulder blade. So go ahead and pull it back. Make sure that you're not rotating your body or anything. And keeping your elbow locked out. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times, just like the rest of the resistance band exercises. Now my patient is going to do protraction. So he is going to try to make this band as level as possible with his arm when he sticks it out in front of him. And he's going to wrap the band around his hand just so he has a good grip on it. And he has all the slack out of the band, but he's not stretching it quite yet. What you're going to do is make sure your scapulas are together in the back, so you're standing up nice and straight. Make sure you keep your elbow locked, and just push your arm forward, and nothing but your arm. So come back, do it one more time for 8 to 12 reps. Okay, now we're going to do scapular elevation. So we're going to wrap that resistance band around our hand like we did before. Keeping all the slack out, but not pulling it yet. Okay, and just make sure that your elbow stays locked out and that you keep your arm straight down. And we're gonna make sure that we're sitting nice and tall. So what we're gonna do is bring our shoulder to our ear. And try not to move your head towards your shoulder, but just move your shoulder to your ear. And make sure that we're not side bending. And we're gonna do this 8 to 12 times. Okay, so now we're gonna do scapular depression. Ideally, this would be a little bit longer, but this is what we're working with. So you would normally have this wrapped around your hand, but since this is not long enough, we're just gonna have to hold it really tight. So keep your elbow fully extended, and you can start with your shoulder raised up just a little bit, and you're gonna push it all the way down without bending your neck or your body. Just moving your shoulder. Good. And this is going to be for 8 to 12 reps. Now my patient is going to do elevation and scaption with the resistance band. So like we did with the weight, we want to bring our arm straight out like this the first time. Just see it without the band.
Oh.
Straight out like this first time just to see where we're starting. And then bring it up just a little, not quite that much. And that's where we're going to do this entire exercise. So we're going to wrap the resistance band around our hand and make sure that we're not pulling on it yet, just getting the slack out. And you're just going to go straight up at that little bit of an angle and back down. Okay. Now my patient is going to do shoulder flexion with the TheraBand. So my patient has stepped on the bottom of this TheraBand, and now go ahead and wrap that around your hands just to make it secure, and make sure you're not pulling it yet, but that you have enough slack. And make sure you keep your elbow locked and just go straight up and straight back down. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Okay, now we're going to do a shoulder extension. So we're going to start where we stopped at the last one, all the way up here. And we're going to wrap it around our hand and just make sure that there's no slack, but we're not pulling it yet. And pull all the way down with our elbow locked. And then go all the way back up. And we're going to make sure that our scapulas are pinched together this whole time so that we have good posture. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Now we are going to do a hyper extension of the shoulders. So we're going to step on this just like we did before. Keep all the slack pulled out, but not actually stretching the band yet. We're going to wrap it around our hand for security. And then just like before, we're going to lock our elbow. And we're going to keep our arms straight and go past our body backwards. But we're going to make sure that we don't start to rotate our trunk backwards, so come forward a little, go back slow, and then come back. And we're going to do that 8 to 12 times, and we're going to make sure that we keep our scapulas kind of pinched together. Okay. This time we are going to do abduction. So the same thing goes where we put it up underneath our feet, and we keep all the slack pulled out, but we're not stretching it yet, and we wrap it around our hand. We're still keeping our elbow all the way out, and we're still keeping our scapulas pinched together in the back, standing up straight, not having our head tilted down or anything. We're just gonna go straight up and all the way back down slow. Slow. And we're just going to do that 8 to 12 times. Now my patient is going to do adduction of the shoulder. So we're doing this with a resistance band. And just like before, you're going to wrap it around your hand and make sure you have all the slack out of it, but not pull it tight. And we're going to start up here like we did with the or where we ended with abduction. And you're just going to bring it right down by your side. So go ahead and do that. And we're going to make sure that we're doing that right beside the band. Good. Okay, this time we're going to do internal rotation with the band. So just like before, we're keeping all of the slack pulled out, but we're not pulling the band yet. And we're going to have it wrapped around our hand to make sure that we have a good grip on it. So we're going to keep our elbow right beside our body. And we're going to keep our elbow bent. And we're going to have our hand in neutral. And we're going to pull inward in front of our body. And we're going to make sure that we're not having our elbow come up off the side of our body. So do that one more time. Okay. And we're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Alright, this time we're doing external rotation, and we're going to have to do it on this side because we don't have the ability to do the other. So we're going to do all of the same steps as last time, keeping the slack pulled out of the band, having it wrapped around your hand. Make sure we're not pulling the band yet. And we're going to start with our elbow flexed and right by our side. And instead of going in this time, we're going to go right out. And we're going to try to keep from your humerus popping out right here. So go ahead and do that. Okay. Make sure you're not bending your wrist. Keep that straight. Make sure your elbow is in. We're going to do that 8 to 12 times. Now we are going to do a horizontal abduction of the shoulder. So just like we did before, we're getting all the slack out of the band, wrapping it around our hand to make sure it's secure. But this time we're going to start with our shoulder up halfway, and we're also going to have our elbow bent just to help get some leverage. So what you're going to do is you're going to bring your arm all the way across your body, trying to keep it straight the whole time. And we're going to make sure that we don't hike up the shoulder towards our ear or rotate our body. And we're going to make sure our scapulas are pinched together. We're going to do this 8 to 12 times. Okay. This time we're going to be doing horizontal abduction of the shoulder, and it's very similar to before, where we keep the slack out of the band and wrap it around our hand without stretching the band quite yet. And we're doing the opposite arm just because we do not have the means to do it the other way. And this time, just like before, we're going to keep our arm up halfway, and we're going to flex our elbow just to help give us some leverage. And you're going to bring your arm out and back just a little bit behind you. And we're going to make sure that we don't rotate. And this entire time, we're going to make sure that we're keeping our scapulas together in the back. And we're going to do 8 to 12 reps of this.